Hey Stampers, welcome back to regalstamping.com. I Miss Your Face, an online card class. My name is Krista Thomas, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a double fold card. It's a very simple card technique. It opens like this and then like this. So it's essentially two cards in one. You have a fold at the left and a fold at the right, and it's as easy as that. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of creating this window and putting it all together. The stamps that I'm using on this card today is the Ornate Style, which became available from Stampin' Up! On April 1st. And a word from Ornate Things. I'm going to mask off my friend and just use the friend part for the front. And then on the inside, I'm using a sentiment from Thanks for the Laughs. This is from the January through June mini catalog 2020. And on the inside it says, I often think about how amazing you are. Today you get it in writing. And I think during this coronavirus isolation time, sending cards to friends and encouraging them is a good thing. So let's get started. And I'll show you how easy it is. All right, these are all my pieces. And we're going to start with an early espresso panel that is 5.5 by 8.5, folded in half. Okay. And I think I best put all of this aside for now. Okay. The first thing that I need to do is I'm going to use a stitched nested label on the front of this card. The size that I am using is not the largest, the second largest. And then I'll show you why I'm using the largest and the third largest in a minute. So you could use an oval shape, a rectangle, whatever you want. But I played around and I decided I kind of liked this shape. So I want to get this centered on the card. And when I cut this out, I need to make sure that my card is open because I don't want to cut both the front and the back of the card. Okay, so I've got that where I want it. I'm going to bring in my Big Shot. And I will just lay this on here and roll it through. And then bring it on back out. Okay, and now I have the cutout on the front of my card, and this frame I'm going to save for another project because it has the nice stitching around it. Okay, the next thing I want to do to the front of this card is I want to give it some texture. So I'm going to run it through the Ornate Floral 3D embossing folder. And I'm going to just line it up so that the fold is right at the edge, like this. Close it, and now I need to get my other plates in here. I'm going to use my base plate beneath it and my blue plate on top of it. And we'll run that through. And that is going to give us some lovely texture on the front of our card. Just like that. Isn't that nice? Okay, let me get the Big Shot out of here. Okay, the next thing that we need is a frame. I felt like it needed something here. So what I did was I cut out this frame using the larger or the largest and the third largest frame from those stitched nested labels, and I've got them taped or stuck together, or I did, but I went ahead and cut this out ahead of time. And then this is going to glue right in this opening here. It just gives a nice frame for the parts of the card that we'll be putting in next. So to glue this in, you just want to add some glue at the very edges, because especially the sides, they're not a whole lot larger than the opening. Okay, so very carefully I'm going to open up my card. I'm going to lay this over it as best I can. Move it over just a tad, just like that. Okay, get that glued in. If you have any glue showing at the edges, get that cleaned up. Okay, and we'll just set that aside for now. Okay, now on to, let's see, or next, we have a piece of crumb cake that measures, let's see, 5 1/4 by 8. And we're going to fold that in half. And then this is going to glue inside our card base with the fold at the right. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Fold at the right. Okay, and that will be the card base. I'm going to set that aside. Now I have the floral stamp from Ornate Style stamp set, and we're going to be putting that into the Stamparatus so that that stamp is right in the middle. And I think I will tack this down with a magnet. I'm going to, whoops, get this in the frame so you can see what I'm doing. I'm inking up with Early Espresso, and then I'm going to close the lid and give it a good press. All right, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to be coloring these flowers with my Stamp and Blend markers. I've got a selection of colors here. And I think I'll start with the leaves. I'm going to color the leaf tips with Daffodil Delight. I know that seems a little strange, but I think the results are going to show that it's worth it. It just gives a little bit more visual interest to these leaves, a little more variation in colors when it's all said and done. And if you followed my blog post from, well, I don't remember what date it was, but I think it might have been from the 1st of April. You've already seen how I color this in, and you may not need this part of the tutorial. Feel free to just fast forward through this. Now I'm coming in with Old Olive Light, and I'm flicking from the base of each leaf up into the yellow, covering some of the yellow, but not all of it. As I am working on this card and doing this video, I'm listening to the pitter-patter of rain outside. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and it is rainy today. There is something soothing and comforting about hearing the rain, and it just makes me want to be inside and doing something crafty. I'll admit, sometimes just sitting with a good book, sipping some hot cocoa or a cup of tea is just what the doctor ordered. And I think I'm getting more crafting time in during this coronavirus pandemic than I normally do. Part of that is because usually I'm prepping for classes that I teach locally. And I haven't had to do that as much. I'm doing these online classes in the hopes that everybody is continuing to spend time stamping. I think right now is a great time to send out those cards that we tend to hoard or save for a rainy day. And, well, no pun intended, but today's a rainy day. But during all this isolation from each other, I think it's nice to get a card in the mail. I got one from one of my customers the other day, and it just made my day. Okay, now I'm coming in with Mossy Meadow Light, and part of the reason I'm using Mossy Meadow Light instead of Old Olive Dark is because I can't find my Old Olive Dark. I'm going to have to order a new one. I have used it and misplaced it. That doesn't usually happen. I'm sure it's here somewhere. In the meantime, the Mossy Meadow Light works well enough. Okay, so you can see that I'm adding the darker into the lighter, the Old Olive Light, and not covering up all of the Old Olive Light and not covering up all the yellow. So that leaves me with 3 colors showing, and I just kind of like the way that looks. You can add as much or as little of the colors as you like. Leaving shadows and highlights where you want. Okay. So my leaves are done, and now I'm going to do the 2 larger flowers. And I'm going to start with Balmy Blue Light. You'll notice my zebra stripe tape on here. That's just something I do when I use a pen in class. That tape reminds me that that is mine because some of my ladies bring their own pens. So that's my way of marking some of my tools. So I'm starting out at the, oh, phooey. I just said I was going to do the smaller, or the larger flowers, and I'm doing the smaller. Okay, change of plans. So we're going to make these daisies blue today. And sometimes mistakes turn out to be something you really like. So when you make a mistake when you're stamping, it's just a creative opportunity. So we're going with it. And I get to talking and I'm not thinking. Okay, so my flowers have that first color of Balmy Blue Light, and then I'm going to go to Pretty Peacock Light, and I'm going to flick from the center out. And I want to leave some of that balmy blue showing, and I'm getting a little carried away here. Whoops. There we go. Have to be careful not to flick too far. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. And you'll notice that I turn my card panel as I color, because I always like to flick away from my body, because that's the natural. You're going to get a lighter as you flick away, and I don't have as much control if I flick towards me. So I turn my panel as I color. Okay. Now we're going to go in with the Pretty Peacock Dark, and I think this time I'll use the smaller tip, and I'm going to start at the center again, and I'm only going to go about halfway up into the previous Pretty Peacock color, because I want the tips of those petals to remain lighter as they go out and allow those highlights to show. If you don't have room to flick, you can just kind of do a dot, dot, dot to get that color in where you want it. And if you're using colored pencils, you can do this same technique with the flicking, but it's not quite the same. Okay. I'll be honest, this is the first time I've done these daisies with 3 colors. So we'll see what it looks like and if it was worth it in the end. Okay. But I think it is kind of pretty. Okay. Now, let's do the centers of these flowers with Daffodil Delight, the light version, like that. And we'll just call it good for now. Now, because I messed up and did the daisies in blue, I think I'll go ahead and do the larger flowers in the Cajun Craze, but I really do like these flowers with 3 colors. So I need to go find a lighter color for my base, since I didn't plan it this way. I think I'm probably going to use Petal Pink, either the light or the dark. So give me just a minute to go get that. Okay. So I'm back with my Petal Pink, the light and the dark. I'm thinking I'm going to use the dark. So let's get some of these markers out of the way here. I think I will use the dark. And I'm going to come in from the tips of the petals, just like I did on the daisies with that balmy blue color, because that's where I want my highlights to be. And we'll just see if this looks good in the end. You can color your flowers whatever color you like. I tried to keep the base of this card as neutral as possible using the early espresso and the crumb cake. That way, if you want to come in with purple flowers or red flowers or whatever, you're welcome to do that, and it should look just fine. When you use Stampin' Blend markers, these are alcohol-based, so you want to stamp your image with a water-based ink. If you were to use something that's not water-based, you may end up with some bleeding when you color, just like if you are watercoloring and you stamp your image with a water-based ink, the water is going to bleed that ink. So you would have to use StazOn, a solvent base. In this case, this is alcohol, so you want the water-based ink as for your stamped image. Okay, moving on, Cajun Craze Light. We're going to start at the center of the flower and flick out into those little petals, not covering up all of that previous petal pink that I just colored. Okay, and we just keep going. All right, on to the second flower. A little further out there. All right, and I think this is looking good. I like that petal pink as the starting color. Now we're going to finish up these two flowers with Cajun Craze Dark, just like before. I think I better use the small tip on this one. We don't want to go all the way covering up that lighter version of Cajun Craze that I just colored. Missed one, we'll just color that there. I'm enjoying today in my craft room because tomorrow I have to paint. I have to paint my kitchen ceiling, and I hate painting ceilings. And the reason is that we are getting ready to put in some recessed lighting. And once all those lights are in, it'll be harder to paint. So I told my husband, you can't put them in until I get the painting done. So tomorrow's my painting day. Not looking forward to it. I'm the painter in this family. And painting ceilings always makes my neck hurt. So but I'll get through it. We have 12 recessed lights going in the dining room and kitchen, and my 9-year-old grandson said, "Grandma, why do you have so many lights?" Because we have pieces of tape showing where we want them. We've been playing with placement. And I said, "Well, because we're old, we need to be able to see." He said, "Grandma, you only need one light." And I laughed. And it may be overkill what we're doing, but I think it's going to look good. Okay, I missed a little spot in here that I think I'll go in and fill in with the petal pink for starters. No, maybe not. I think I just want to go ahead, and that could actually have been green, but I'll go ahead and just fill that in like that. Now, the little center of this flower here, I think I'll do with the petal pink. I don't really want to introduce yellow or another color to that. Okay. So I do like the way that turned out. And now we just need to do the small flowers. And I am going to use So Saffron Light and Daffodil Delight Dark. Let me show you. Usually I prefer to start with the light color and work my way to the dark, as you've seen me do. But in this case, I am going to start with the dark, and I'm just going to kind of go scribble, scribble around the center. And I really am just quickly scribbling. Because I can. And it doesn't, coloring doesn't always have to take precision and time. Okay, see how quick and easy that was. Now, So Saffron Light, I'm going to go in. I'll use the large tip this time, and I'm just going to scribble in around that color that I just put in. If I overlap, it's okay. Okay, now I just need to decide what color to do those centers, and I think I'll go with Cajun Craze Dark and just fill those in quickly. Okay, and these flowers are done. Let me put my markers away. And then we'll bring the card base back in, and this is going to glue right here so that when the card base is shut, those flowers will be in the window. So let me put some glue on here. Just like that. Okay. Now we need our inside panel. So I'll set the card aside again. I'll get my 5" by 3 3/4 inch, which is the same size that this was. And the stamp that I want to use says, "I often think about how amazing you are. Today you get it in writing." Okay. And we're going to use Early Espresso. Early Espresso ink, and I'm going to place it just a little to the right of center, like that. And then, well, have lost my piece. But what I was going to do is add a 1/2 inch strip of old olive down the side. So I'll find that piece later and finish this card. So I'm just going to glue this in to the center of this second card. This is the first card, second card. It's 2 cards in one, or a double fold. Okay, so now everything there is done except for the front. I want to add a little bit of visual interest here. So I have used the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and I have cut out of Rococo Rose this shape, and out of Vanilla this small shape. And then I have a 3/4 inch strip of old olive. I'm going to take my triple banner punch, and I'm just going to cut off my ends. Get this centered about like that. Then I'm going to test it and see if that's the right length. And I nailed it. Okay, so now I'm going to put a drop of glue at each end and lay that across here. Get that glued on. Just like that. Okay, and then this will end up going onto here, but first I want to stamp the word friend. I have a stamp from the Ornate Thanks that says my friend, but I am just going to ink up the word friend by laying it at the edge of my ink pad and just inking up that one word. Now, if you want, you could use a Post-it note to cover the word my, and then ink up, and then you would, well, let me show you. If you mask, you just mask off the word that you don't want to get ink on. Ink up like you normally would. You don't have to be careful. Ink up, and then before you stamp, you have to remember to remove this because there is ink on that. So either way, you're going to get the word friend on there. And then this will glue onto here. Let me close this ink pad or I'll end up with a mess. Okay, like that. And then I want this to be raised a little bit, so I'm going to put a Stampin' Dimensional. Well, I'll put a few. I'm going to go right across the center because it's going to go across the card, that green strip there. Give it a good base. I'll add 3. And then this will go just like that. Okay. Finally, I used the little flower dies from the Ornate Borders die set. And I'm going to just glue these to the front. I'm going to put the largest one here, the smallest one next to it, and then the medium size up here in the opposite corner. And now my card is finished. So this is a double fold card, friend. I often think about how amazing you are. Today you get it in writing. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial, and I hope that you'll go make some cards, do some stamping. If you don't have the same stamp sets that I used on both of these cards, let me bring, this was the previous video in this series. But if you don't have the ornate style, you could use the painted poppies. This flower could go here. These two flowers, you could make an arrangement. You could also use Daisy Lane or Daisy Delight for either card. Timeless Tropical. The large flower, the smaller one, you've got leaves. To a Wild Rose would also work, at least for this one. Perhaps not so well on this one. And finally, Petal Palette. This spray you could do a couple of times in here. These smaller flowers could go here. Just look and see what you have. However, if you do love these ornate style products, ornate garden products rather, ornate style and ornate things are available from my Stampin' Up! Store. Just go to kristathomas.stampinup.net and do a search for ornate style, ornate things, and all the other products that are in that ornate garden suite. Check those out because it is a really neat suite of products. All right, I do miss your faces and I hope that you're stamping, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in the near future. All right, see you next time.